What is going on, college basketball fans? And today we are back with our updated full March Madness bracket predictions. So, Joe Lunardi recently came out with an updated bracketology. This is if March Madness, if the tournament were to begin today, this is what he believes. He's very accurate, and I agree with most of his things. You know, you're going to have your disagreements, but I feel like it's good enough to where we can put it into our own file here and fill it out from the first round all the way to the national championship and just take a look at who I believe right now could win the national championship if the tourney began today. And we do an updated version of this every once in a while, and with it about to be 2024, getting closer and closer to March Madness, we're getting ready to get into conference play. These are going to be coming out much more often. I want you guys to let me know down below in the comment section, because I know this is probably my most popular series on my channel, and we're going to be coming out with a bunch of content now that we are getting closer and closer to March Madness. I want to know, how often do you guys want an updated version of this? Do you want it like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks? Let me know down below in the comment section, because I will happily do an updated version of this as often as you guys would like to see it. So I'm ready to get it started. This is what the bracket is looking like here by Joe Lunardi. Like I said, updated on December 26th, and I believe it is the 28th as I'm recording it. Should be out Friday the 29th. So let's get into it. Our top overall seed is the Purdue Boilermakers. No surprise there. Could they possibly lose back-to-back years to a 16 seed to either Merrimack or Southern University? I don't believe so. I think this Purdue team is going to come out ready to play this March Madness. They're going to win by a bunch of points, and they are going to get the W here against... I'll probably give it to Merrimack over Southern, and then Purdue over Merrimack here in this first game. Then we got Virginia versus Dayton, a very good 8-9 matchup, and I love this Dayton team a lot. I worry a little bit about Dayton's guard play. I think that they will be able to come out of their conference there in the A10 and make it to March Madness this year. They fell just short last year. Very good team, very well coached, but I like Tony Bennett here to get a first round win over the Flyers here in this one. And that sets up an awesome, like almost poetic matchup in the second round, where Purdue lost to a 16 seed last year, returned pretty much everybody, and then some. And then Virginia is the only other team who lost to a 16 seed in March Madness history, and they came back, won the national championship the following year in 2019. And it's kind of poetic that in the following year, Purdue then gets matched up with Virginia in March Madness. It just has to happen. If this is the way the bracket lines up, this has to happen. Oklahoma is our 5 seed, and Indiana State is our 12 seed. I'm really liking the Sycamores this year. I'm excited because they are actually playing Michigan State this upcoming weekend for the first time since the Magic Johnson-Larry Bird national championship matchup. This is the first time Indiana State and Michigan State will be matched up since then, so it's going to be very fun to watch. And Indiana State is looking pretty solid, and I'm very excited for them. I think that they could come out of the Missouri Valley. To me, it's between them or the Drake Bulldogs, and I like Indiana State a lot. I like Robbie Buckets. I would love to see him in March Madness. And Oklahoma is a team I'm still on the fence about. Like, they don't have any standout players, in my opinion. Yes, they have some good guards, including McCollum and them boys. And Porter Moser, he's been to a Final Four before with Loyola Chicago, but he hasn't had the success with Oklahoma since he's been there yet. This may be his best team. But I want to see them get into Big 12 play first, prove themselves a little bit more. I know they have good wins over Providence, Arkansas, but I'm just not quite sold on them yet. And I really do think if Robbie Buckets and this Indiana State Sycamores team can make it to the tourney, they could be like a team that America falls in love with, and a team that could upset Oklahoma as a 12-5 upset. We all know they're popular upsets. They're going to happen, and this one just feels right. I'm liking the Sycamores to move on to round number 2. And somebody fact check me. I'm not sure, but would this be Indiana State's first tourney win since Larry Bird took them to the national championship game in 1979? I'm sure they might have made the tourney or gotten a win or two since then. I'm just wondering, has it been that long? Like, have they gotten a win since then? Because I would love to see them back in the tourney. Next up, another in-state battle, in-state school there with Indiana State is Indiana University, and it's weird seeing a Power 6 conference team here as a 13 seed. Definitely weird to see, but Villanova, they play really good against good teams and really bad against bad teams from what we know about them so far this season. And I completely mistake that. It's Kentucky versus Indiana. It's kind of covered by this next side. Ignore that last statement. Indiana versus Kentucky. Now, that is actually a much tougher matchup for Indiana, in my opinion. I think that Kentucky, in almost all facets of the game, outmatch Indiana, and I feel like they're going to take the cake in this one. Like, I don't know if Indiana is going to be a tournament team by the end of the year. It's like I said, it's weird seeing them as a 13 seed. That's normally a seed you want to see a mid-major. I think the lowest seed you can give a team like Indiana or a Power 6 team should be a 12 team or a 12 seed. So that's a little odd for me to see, but I really like this Kentucky team. I mean, Austin Reeves has been killing it. I'm a big fan of Reed Shepherd. I think that he is an awesome freshman along with Rob Dillingham, DJ Wagner. They got some stud freshmen. Trey Mitchell is a nice veteran presence there with Austin Reeves, and I just think that this Kentucky team is built really nicely for March Madness. This is definitely the best Calipari team that we have seen in the past few years. Michigan State is an 11 seed going up against Villanova, our 6 seed, and this would be a very, very fun matchup. Like, we all know, Michigan State was projected to be such a good team this year, like literally a top 5 team preseason with AJ Hoggard and Tyson Walker coming back. And I do believe that they have the edge on Villanova with their guard play. I'm a big Justin Moore guy. I think that he is such a stud and he could lead Villanova to go far, but I just hate this matchup for Villanova, as even though I could see them competing for the Big East championship this year, I just think that Tom Izzo versus a newer coach, since Jay Wright's not there anymore. I like Tom Izzo as an 11 seed in March Madness. They have a team that is supposed to be way, way better than an 11 seed, and I like Michigan State in this matchup to move on. 11/6 upset here. Akron going up here against Clemson, and I'm not huge on anyone in the MAC conference this year. I don't think Akron is that great, although the MAC conference has had plenty of surprises over the past couple of years in the tournament for sure. But I don't think that Akron is that team. I'm going to go with Clemson here to move on to the second round. I really like what Clemson has going on this year. I feel like they're very, very underrated, and I got the Tigers moving on. Next up, we got Mississippi State going up against Ohio State here in our 7-10 matchup. That Chris Jans is a great head coach, and he's got Mississippi State on the right track. They just got to get to March Madness. This is definitely the year they're going to get there, and I think whenever they get Tolu Smith back to down there at forward, along with Jimmy Bell, who's been playing awesome this year, I really like Mississippi State in their front court, and I'm a big fan of Chris Jans. I think he outcoaches Ohio State. Give me Mississippi State here to move on. Next up, we got FAU versus Morehead State, and I am going to go with FAU here to move on to the next round. I mean, FAU, a Final Four team last year, bringing everybody back. I really like what they got going on. They just got a big win against Arizona in an amazing matchup, and I think that this team is built to once again make a run to March Madness, and I think FAU moves on here as the 2 seed. Let's go ahead and finish out this region. We'll go region by region. I kind of like doing that more, so we kind of stay on topic with these teams we're talking about, and then we can kind of move on to the next region. So next up, we got Purdue versus Virginia, kind of this poetic matchup that I was talking about. And I think that this would be a great one. I mean, these two teams, not only were they the only two teams that lost to a 16 seed and kind of what I talked about earlier, but also when Virginia won the championship in 2019, they faced off in the Elite Eight where it was an amazing back and forth matchup, went down to the wire. That's with Carson Edwards. That was that Purdue team, and it was amazing. So these two teams, to me, just feel like they're tied together, and this is just kind of that next step in the story that these two teams have. It's almost like that this matchup is almost becoming a March Madness rivalry when they are able to see them match up in the tourney. So I would love to see this for many, many reasons, although I definitely don't believe that Virginia has the size or the front court to be able to match up with Zach Edey and them boys at Purdue. I think Purdue wins this pretty easily, at least 10, 12, 15 points. I think that they defeat Virginia for sure. Indiana State versus Kentucky. I would love to see the Sycamores keep on pushing, keep on moving on, but I'm going to go with Kentucky in this matchup. I think that they have a lot of talent this year. I really like them to at least make it here to the Sweet 16 against Purdue. I like this Kentucky team. I like them a lot. I like their freshman, Rob Dillingham especially. He is so much fun to watch. He's going to be such a good pro, and I'm not really a big fan of the NBA, but Rob Dillingham is built for the NBA 100%. He is an athletic monster. Big fan of Reed Shepherd, DJ Wagner. All these boys are studs. Next up, we got Michigan State versus Clemson. And this is actually a very good matchup, especially with the backcourts. And I'm leaning Michigan State here as an 11 seed. Tom Izzo and March. I think that they're going to start turning things around, and they are starting to right now. And I think Michigan State, by the time they get to March Madness, they're going to be a higher seed than an 11 seed, but right now I'm kind of liking their matchups with Villanova and Clemson. I feel like these are beatable teams for Michigan State, and I am going to have them keep on moving on as an 11 seed here to the Sweet 16. Next up, we got Mississippi State versus FAU, and can this Chris Jan's team knock off a very talented FAU team that just has so many playmakers that you never know who it's going to be on FAU who's just going to take over the day. And I just don't believe Mississippi State has the guard play. Plain and simple, FAU has so many great guards, and Mississippi State, I don't think they have the guard play that's going to be able to keep up. FAU can put up a lot of points in a hurry. Mississippi State is more of a defensive team, and how long can they slow down these FAU guards? I don't believe it will be for too long. If Mississippi State can slow down the game, have some long possessions, and finish with some buckets on those possessions, I think that this could be a close game, and even then I think FAU could still pull it out if they play that way. But as soon as this game switches pace into FAU's favor, I don't believe that Mississippi State is going to be able to keep up. So give me FAU in this game to move on to the Sweet 16. Next up, we got Purdue versus Kentucky, and wow, this is an amazing matchup. I'm not so sure that Kentucky has the best size here to be able to compete with Purdue and Zach Edey and Caleb First and these boys down low. I think that Trey Mitchell is going to be able to give it his all here against Purdue. But that being said, I could definitely see a world where Zach Edey has a big game and Purdue could still lose. And we kind of seen that with Purdue's only loss this year was against Northwestern. And Northwestern doesn't really have the bigs to be able to guard Zach Edey. And Zach Edey had a great game, but they still lost. And I think that Kentucky might have the guard advantage in this one. If Reed Shepherd continues to develop along with Austin Reeves there, and DJ Wagner, if they are at their max potential by the time we get to March Madness, which I kind of believe they will be, I think Kentucky definitely has the advantage when it comes to guard play. And I think that Trey Mitchell is a tough player. He's going to be able to at least get a couple of stops on Zach Edey and maybe even force some turnovers. And I'm leaning Kentucky in this matchup. I think that it is very possible Purdue They look like the best team in college basketball right now. It's very possible they could come back, win the national championship, same way that Virginia did in 2019 after losing to the 16th seed the year prior. But I really like Kentucky in this matchup. Something is telling me I don't think Purdue is going to win the national championship, even though their guards are improving. Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith, especially Braden Smith. I feel like both of those guys have to be, playing great in March Madness for this team to be able to make it to the national championship and definitely win the national championship. So I'm not sold on Purdue's guard play, but they definitely have better depth this year. I think, like I said, Braden Smith has improved since last year, and they're going to need that. But I like Kentucky in this game, and I'm going to pick the Wildcats to upset Purdue, 4 seed over a 1. Next up, we got Michigan State, our 11 seed, going up against FAU, our 2 seed. This would be a very, very fun matchup, and honestly, this feels like a matchup I need to see. Like Tyson Walker, AJ Hoggard, Adkins going up against guys like John L. Davis, Elijah Martin, Greenlee, Nick Boyd. The guard matchups in this game would be excellent to see. I just would love to see which of these teams would come out on top. And right now, as good as FAU looks, it's hard to make back-to-back Final Fours and go on that run. And when you're matched up against one of the greatest coaches of all time in Tom Izzo, and he's got a squad that has underperformed so far this year, I believe they're going to turn it around. I believe that they are going to be probably the second best team in the Big Ten by the end of the year. Illinois looks very good, but I think Michigan State could pass up Illinois by the time we get to March Madness. I think that they are that good. They just got to win games. And I don't see many threats to them in the Big Ten if they can just keep racking up the wins. They have so much talent on this team. I'm going to go with Michigan State here to get it done. I just think that they have such a good squad. And if Tyson Walker is playing great, AJ Hoggard is playing great as far as playmaking-wise, but I believe if AJ Hoggard plays like that AJ Hoggard that was playing against Marquette last year in the round of 32, where he's just driving to the rack, putting up a ton of points, Tyson Walker can be that clutch guy down the stretch. I think that this is a game that comes down to the wire, and I think Michigan State pulls it out in the end. So if Hoggard and Adkins can just pick up their scoring a little bit, like I know they can, and then they got guys like Sissoko, Carson Cooper, Xavier Booker, if even just one of them can step up and become the guy down low, this is a team that could possibly win the national championship. And we're talking about an 11 seed here. But I definitely believe it. They're way better than an 11 seed. Then, to make it to the Final Four, we got Kentucky versus Michigan State. And I think if both these teams just knocked off the 1 and 2 seed in this region, and honestly, I'm really feeling Michigan State in this game. I'm really feeling Michigan State in this game. And battle of 2 blue bloods here. And trust me, I'm not just going to chalk all blue bloods in this video. I like Michigan State. I like Michigan State as an 11 seed. Let's get a double digit in the Final Four. We know it happens a lot of years. It happens, and Michigan State is like the perfect 11 seed. Tom Izzo does so well as an underseed, especially when he's got as much talent as he does this year. Next up, we got Arizona versus Marist. And honestly, what the hell is even a Marist? Come on. Arizona is going to win this game. I really like Arizona's guards, man. Caleb Love, Kylan Boswell. They got some studs on this team. Omar Ballo, one of the more underappreciated centers in college basketball. He's a beast. They're moving on. Next up, we got Providence versus Iowa State. And this is such a good matchup. 50-50. exactly what you want for an 8-9 matchup. Providence has been playing well recently, but so has Iowa State. I feel like Providence has had the more impressive wins so far this year, whereas Iowa State, they've gone up against teams like Virginia Tech, and I think they lost to Texas A&M. I feel like they've lost to teams like that. I think Providence has the more experience with Devin Carter, who I'm a big fan of. Bryce Hopkins, I'm also a big fan of him. Kim English, not as proven as a head coach, obviously in his first season as the head coach, as Otzelberger, they're at Iowa State, but I am going to go with Providence here to win this game. Next up, we got Baylor versus Princeton in our 5-12. Ooh. I think the first predictions I did, what was that, last month, maybe even a month and a half ago, way before the beginning of the season, like right first week of the season was the last time I did these predictions. We're going to come out with them a lot more often now that we're almost in 2024. But the 12 seeds were not looking that good to me. But now I got some mid-majors that I like a lot, and the 12 seeds are looking a lot better. And I don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger on Princeton. I think I'm going to go Baylor here. Yeah. I'm going to go Baylor here, but I like Princeton a lot. I don't really like the matchup here for Princeton. I think that Baylor and Scott Drew always have great defense, and in particular, great defensive guards. Princeton has great guards, guys who can shoot the lights out. I think Baylor's going to put a stop to that, make them beat them a different way. I'm not sure if they can. I like Baylor in this matchup. Next up, we got North Carolina versus UNC Wilmington. And UNC Wilmington is a solid team, a solid mid-major. And I like them a lot as a 13 seed versus an in-state school in UNC. And UNC, I mean, you can never count on Armando Bacot. He could have a big game against Wilmington. RJ Davis is playing amazing basketball this year. I'm not too high on North Carolina, though, this year. But I feel like they'll get by UNC Wilmington in this one. So I am going to go with the Tar Heels to get it done and move on to round number 2. Next up, we do have Texas A&M going up against either Texas or Va Tech. And is Dylan Dessou coming back? Like, when does Dylan Dessou come back? Because that is going to be a big thing when it comes to March Madness. He was so good in March Madness last year before he got hurt. And they got Max Asmus, who's another great player in March Madness. I think Texas beats Virginia Tech here, by the way. But I think I am going to go with the Aggies here to defeat Texas in a very good game, though. I think this is a close game. But I really like Texas A&M in this one. I would love to see both teams really have good guards. I almost think that Tyrese Radford and Wade Taylor might be the better duo than Hunter and Asmus. And that's surprising, but it's close. It's very close. And I'm a big Henry Coleman fan. I think that he has a lot of upside to really go off in March Madness. And if Dessou isn't back in this game, Texas A&M, Henry Coleman's going to have a day. Next up, we got BYU versus Fort Wayne, which is Purdue-Fort Wayne. And Purdue-Fort Wayne is actually a very solid team. I'm not sure if you guys knew this, but they do have a very solid team. And BYU is playing good. I'm not sure how confident I am in them. They're another team that I feel like is somewhat unproven and haven't played too many great teams so far this year. So as a 3 seed, I feel like they're overseeded. They deserve it at this point in the season. If the tournament started today, for sure, I agree with Joe Lunardi. But I think by the end of the year, they're a team that is going to fall to more of a 7-8 seed around there, or at the highest, maybe a 5 seed. So a 3 seed for them, I'm not sure. And I feel like for Purdue Fort Wayne, this is the matchup you want. And I'm not sure if I'm definitely not going to have any 16 over 1s in this video. I don't think I'm going to have any 15 over 2s. But I think a 14 over 3, you got to have at least one. We're going to get at least a 14 over 3. That's like, if you're not getting any 16 over 1s, 15 over 2s, you're going to at least get one 14 over 3 every single year in March Madness. And I'm going to take Purdue Fort Wayne to upset BYU here in this one. Next up, we do have Gonzaga versus Florida. Very fun matchup, considering, especially because Florida, a very solid team, underrated team in my opinion. Florida's head coach used to be the head coach of San Francisco, so he is very used to seeing Mark Few and this Gonzaga Bulldog team and be a great team that they are. I don't know if Florida has the talent to compete with Gonzaga this year. I'm a big Antoine Watson fan, and I think Gonzaga has this one in the bag. Next up, we do have Marquette versus Weber State, and Weber State is a strong 15 seed. I mean, I'm not saying that they're like amazing. They're definitely going to pull off an upset, but if they got to a 14, I could see them as a 13 seed. I feel like for a 15 seed, this is a strong team, so Marquette got a tough draw, but I'm high on this Marquette team. I don't think they're losing first round. Give me the Golden Eagles to move on to round number 2. Tyler Kolek might be the best point guard in the country. You got Cam Jones. You got Iggy down low. They got a squad. Give me Marquette to move on. Next up, we got Arizona versus Providence. This would be a fun matchup. I think Devin Carter is a very good defensive guard, and he can also score, and he can score down the stretch as well. And I'm a big Devin Carter fan, but I'm also a huge Kylan Boswell fan, and I think Caleb Love in March Madness is going to be very fun to watch on Arizona. And this is a game I could see being a lot closer than what a lot of people might think, but I think Arizona pulls it out, but I think it's close throughout the game, but I think Arizona pulls it out for sure. Next up, we got Baylor versus North Carolina, and straight up, I think Baylor can play some really good defense against RJ Davis, but I think the mismatch is with Armando Bacot. I think Armando Bacot has a big game against Baylor, and I think UNC actually moves on here in this one. And Baylor, big Jacoby Walters fan. I think that he is such a stud, and guards should be going to Baylor. If you are a 5-star guard, look at what Scott Drew is producing. You want to go to Baylor, and Jacoby Walters is the next guard who is going to be a lottery pick in the NBA draft this year. But that sets up an amazing matchup. The Caleb Love Bowl, if you want to call it. I know we're in basketball, but we can call it that. The Caleb Love Bowl, where you got Caleb Love going up against his former team in North Carolina and his former teammates in Bacot in RJ Davis in particular, because there were a ton of rumors going around last year about Caleb Love possibly, being the other man when it comes to RJ Davis, his girlfriend. A lot of drama going on there, but this isn't drama alert. This is bracketology. So let's move on. Next up, we got Texas A&M versus Purdue Fort Wayne, and I definitely believe it is not out the realm of possibility for Purdue Fort Wayne to upset BYU and then go on to the next game and upset Texas A&M. As highly as I was talking about Henry Coleman, Wade Taylor, Tyrus Radford, this could be their year. They almost remind me a lot of Miami, not last year, but the year prior, that made the Elite Eight with I'm blanking on their names. Jordan Miller, Isaiah Wong, of course. And of course, what is that point guard on their team that they had before Nigel Pack? Charlie, is Charlie something? You guys know who I'm talking about. It almost kind of reminds me of that team a little bit. And Henry Coleman kind of reminds me of North Shadow Muir. So I could see this Texas A&M team going far, but I could also see them falling short I could see them falling short again, like they did last year when they lost first round to Penn State. So I'm iffy on this. I believe in having at least one Cinderella. I'm going to go with Purdue Fort Wayne to beat Texas A&M, and I do like this Texas A&M team a lot, but I'm going to go with Purdue Fort Wayne here. Next up, we got Gonzaga versus Marquette, and this would be a fun matchup. I think Marquette has much, much better guards, and Marquette is definitely accustomed to seeing Gonzaga's stud point guard in Ryan Nembhard, as he used to be a Creighton Blue Jay. And I think that Marquette can have a good game plan for him. I'm a big Shaka Smart fan. I think that, yes, he only has one tournament win, I think, since he made the Final Four back with VCU, I think was last year in the first round. I think he needs to turn that around here a little bit this year, and I think he's going to get another win here over Gonzaga and move on to the Sweet 16. Next up, we got our Sweet 16 matchups. Again, like I said, some drama going on here. An emotional game for Caleb Love, an emotional game for RJ Davis. They're both going to absolutely want this one. And not to mention, you got an awesome, awesome matchup at the center position between Omar Ballo and Armando Bacot. This has all the makings of an excellent Sweet 16 game between our 1 seed and our 4 seed. And I have to tell you, I think Arizona is the better team. I think that they have better depth. I think when it comes down to it, Arizona is going to win this game, but I do believe it will be a close one. I do believe that RJ Davis will have a 25-point night. I'm not sure how good Armando Bacot is going to do in this one. I think he'll probably still have 15 and 10, but I think Omar Ballo could slow him down enough for Arizona to be able to win this game and move on to the Elite Eight. Next up, we got Fort Wayne in the Sweet 16, don't want to get too ahead of myself here, versus Marquette. And Marquette is a very, very good, proven team this year, in my opinion. The way that they played Purdue this year very, very closely, the way that they beat Kansas this year, earlier in the year, and I know that they've had some slip-ups, but this team, when I watch them, looks like they could compete with the best of them in college basketball this year. I think that they're bringing back a lot on this team, of course. Tyler Kolek, Cam Jones, one of the best backcourts in the nation. You add Iggy to that, and you add some more depth. I believe they have more depth than they did have last year, and this team looks awesome. And Sean Jones is a sophomore that I believe he's so fast. He has so much potential. If he can, get there by the end of the year, by the time we get to March Madness. Stevie Mitchell, these are some backup guards for this team that I just think if they can just level it up just a little bit, Joplin as well, this team can go very, very far. And I'm going to have Marquette move on here past Fort Wayne fairly easily. I mean, when you're a team like Fort Wayne and you pick up a couple of wins, you gain momentum, so they're not going to be an easy out. But I think Marquette is going to be the ones who do take them out. Now, to go to the Final Four, we do have a good matchup between Arizona and Marquette, a 1-2 seed matchup, very different from our 4-11 seed matchup here in our top bracket. And I'm going to go ahead and just give it to you straight. I'm going to have Marquette here win this game, but I think that is going to be a very fun matchup. I mean, you have Tyler Kolek, Cam Jones going up against Kylan Boswell and Caleb Love. You got Omar Ballo down there battling with Iggy. But both teams have pretty good depth as well. Both teams know when they need a bucket. They need to go out there and score. I think this is going to be a high 70s, maybe even in the 80s type game. But I like Marquette here to win it. Yeah, give me Golden Eagles in the Final Four to set up a rematch from last year's round of 32 matchup where Michigan State did upset Marquette. But this time it'll be in the Final Four. So next up, we got the right side of our bracket. Let's go Houston versus Norfolk State. Give me Houston 100%. Colorado versus Nevada. I think this would be a very fun matchup. Nevada's got some great players. I like a lot of teams in the Mountain West this year. But I think I'm going to go with Colorado. To get this win. I think that the freshman Cody Williams is going to step up a lot by the time we get to March Madness. One of the more underrated freshmen this year in college basketball, which is surprising to me considering he was a 5-star recruit and a top 10 recruit coming into this class. But I think that he's going to pick it up, and he is a very underrated playmaker as well as a forward. Next up, we got Auburn versus Grand Canyon, and I mentioned I kind of like the 12 seeds this year from what I'm seeing, and I'm a big fan of Grand Canyon. They got an excellent backcourt here on their squad. They got a pretty good coach as well. And I do like Aiden Holloway and Janai Broom and Bruce Pearl. I think that they're dangerous, and I think the last time they were a 5 seed back in 2019, they made it all the way to the Final Four. So could they repeat that? It is definitely possible, but I like Grand Canyon. I think that whoever they get matched up with this year in March Madness, assuming they make it, they will be a very, very tough out. Next up, we got Duke going up against UC Irvine. Not a big fan of UC Irvine this year, but they seem to always be very well coached and in the mix of things there in their league and being in the mix to potentially make the tourney. But I think that Duke is too good here. I'm going to take the Blue Devils here to move on. Next up, we got Creighton versus South Carolina, and it almost feels like South Carolina is that type of team that Creighton seems to almost struggle with at times. But we have seen Creighton last year, for example, have some rough times there in the regular season, but then able to pick it up in March Madness and make it all the way to the Elite Eight, and I think that they pick it up in March Madness again here this year. So I am going to go with Creighton here to get the win over South Carolina. So next up, we got Wisconsin going up against Samford, and I'm not going to lie to you, this is the first team other than maybe one of the 16 seeds that I don't really know too much about, and that is Samford. And that being said, I'm going to lean Wisconsin in this game. I mean, Wisconsin's pretty proven this year. As you can tell, they are a 3 seed. So I like Wisconsin there in that matchup, and Wisconsin was going to be my favorite in that 3-14 matchup, even if I did know the team. But going up against Samford, that's definitely the weakest 14 seed I see on here. Give me Wisconsin. Next up, we got San Diego State going up against Miami, and this is the best first round. I think this is the best first round matchup in this entire bracket. San Diego State versus Miami. These were both Final Four teams last year, and they both brought a lot of players back. I really like San Diego State, but this is such a tough matchup for the first round. It's crazy to see. And man, Nigel Pack, you got Poplar, you got Norchad O'Meara, which plays so good in March Madness, but San Diego State is such a good defensive team, and they have players right now that are playing awesome, and a lot of players that are returning from last year's team that were the runner-ups in the national championship game. So I am going to go with the Aztecs in this game, but both teams very experienced, very well coached, and both teams were in the Final Four last year, so this is going to be an awesome matchup. Whoever wins this game has the makings to potentially go far in the tournament. Give me San Diego State, though, to do it. Next up, we got Tennessee going up against Longwood. Tennessee has been playing awesome basketball this year. This is almost the best I think I've seen Tennessee look over the past couple of years. I know they've had some great teams, but I think this might be their best team that they have had, and they can't seem to get past the Sweet 16. They've had a couple of good Sweet 16 teams, including last year where they beat Duke in the second round. I think that this team is better. They have some great depth. I really like Dalton Nett. I think that he is a great player. I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but he's a bucket. I've watched him play plenty of times this year. Trust me, I know who he is, even if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. He's a beast, and I think that he has a big game here in this one, and I'm going to have Tennessee move on. Okay, next up we got Houston versus Colorado, and this is maybe the first time that I've actually considered picking a 1 seed to lose in the second round, and usually one of them does, and Houston has a very solid team. I just feel like they're unproven this year. They're undefeated. One of only 3 undefeated teams so far still left this season. And Kelvin Sampson is an excellent head coach, and that's kind of where I'm still leaning Houston in this game, is the coaching battle. Houston always has a great defensive team. I just don't know if Colorado, even though they have Tristan da Silva, Cody Williams, who I'm a big fan of, Eddie Lampkin, I just don't know if they have the athletes all around, like 1 through 10 guys, to be able to compete with Houston, especially with Houston's defense and athleticism. I like Houston in this matchup, just coaching-wise as well. Give me the Cougars to move on. Next up, we got Grand Canyon going up against Duke. And I think that Grand Canyon competes in this matchup. But I think that Kyle Filipowski, also Jeremy Roach, Tyrese Proctor, there are some great players on this Duke team that I think it's just going to be too much for Grand Canyon, even though I do feel like Grand Canyon has a chance in this one. As small as it might be, I kind of want to pick them, but I am going to go with Duke here to move on to the Sweet 16 to match up with Houston. Next up, we do have Creighton versus Wisconsin. This would be a very, very fun matchup to see. And I do think that Wisconsin does have a great team, but so does Creighton. And I did mention that I do think that Creighton could turn it up a little bit when they get to the March Madness tournament this year. Store has been phenomenal. What a pickup it was for them this offseason. But I do think that Stephen Ashworth, if he can turn it up a little bit, you put Trey Alexander on AJ Store, I feel like that's clamps. I don't know. Gut feeling. I think Creighton turns it on and makes it to, I think this would be their 3rd straight Sweet 16. If they can do it this year. Next up, we do have San Diego State going up against Tennessee in an awesome matchup. And San Diego State, not your typical 7 seed. You know, they're a great team that were just in the national championship game last season. And they're returning a lot of players. And Jaden Ledee has improved so much. He is one of the maybe the best kept secret in college basketball this year. If you haven't been paying attention to the Aztecs, Jaden Ledee is the most improved player of 2023-2024 season. He is killing it, averaging over 20 a game. And that's kind of what the San Diego State team was missing. Like, that star go-to player that if they could have had a 20-point per game scorer last season, they might have even had a chance to beat UConn in the national championship, even more so than they already did. So I think that this Aztec team can definitely beat Tennessee 100%. They're bringing back Trammell, of course, Jaden Ledee that I mentioned. They brought in Reese Waters over from USC, who is an excellent transfer pickup for them this year. And I like San Diego State here in this matchup to move on to the Sweet 16, going to go up against Creighton. Next up, we do have Houston versus Duke here in this matchup, and this is a very, very important matchup for this bracket. I mean, the athletes to compete with Houston. Kelvin Sampson, of course, is the more proven coach over John Shire. This is a very, very tough matchup for me to pick right now. But I do believe I am going to go with Duke here to get it done. As much as I don't really like Puke, you know, they're the Alabama of basketball, you know, to most casuals who don't watch a lot of college basketball, they think, oh, Duke, that's the best brand in college basketball. And it may be the biggest brand in college basketball. It's up there, you know, they're a blue blood, 100%. And I don't like picking them, but they have a hell of a team this year. As much as I don't want to pick them, they are moving on to my Elite Eight because Kyle Filipowski, he gets a lot of love this year. He's averaging 18. He's averaging almost 10 boards a game. He gets a lot of a love, but I still don't know if he gets enough. He is so good, and they have a great point guard in Jeremy Roach. And Tyrese Proctor, I feel like hasn't been playing to the best of his potential this season. Like, I feel like he could be playing better than he is right now, and Mark Mitchell as well. So I don't think that this Duke team has hit their peak, and I think if they hit their peak by the time we get to March Madness, or if they hit their peak at the perfect time during March Madness, I think that this team could go far. And they have great freshmen like Sean Stewart, who I think he hasn't been able to get that many minutes this year, but if he can get there by the time we get to March, they have a lot of players that could turn up and lead this team to go far. I think that they have the makings to be able to defeat Houston in the Sweet 16. They have an amazing backcourt. Jamal Shed, very experienced. LJ Cryer, who is a great 3-and-D player, a great shooter as well. Oh my gosh, what a shot creator. They have great defenders as well. But I like Duke here in this matchup. Next up, we got Creighton versus San Diego State. And it is our 6 versus 7 seed, winner to the Elite 8. And, man, I think that the San Diego State team, I mean, this is a rematch from last year's Elite 8. This is a matchup from last year's Elite 8. Winner goes to the Final Four. This year, winner goes to the Elite 8. And San Diego State, we saw them be able to lock down this Creighton team last year. And Ryan Cockburner is a guy that I have not mentioned in this video yet. He is going to be a key reason to whether Creighton can win or lose this game. I think it is all on Ryan Cockburner's shoulders, and that is a lot to ask. But I think San Diego State can shut it down a little bit or slow him down enough to win this game. So give me San Diego State, the Aztecs, to move on to the Elite 8 for the second year in a row. Next up, we got to do our Elite 8 matchup, of course, before we move on. Don't get ahead of yourself now. Come on. Okay, Duke versus San Diego State. Very fun matchup. Jaden Ledee, who is going to guard him? Duke has a lot of fantastic athletes. I feel like it would have to be Tyrese Proctor to be guarded on Jaden Ledee, which would be an excellent matchup, one that I have to see and eat popcorn while I'm watching it. Jeremy Roach going up against guys like Trammell and these awesome guards for San Diego State. I don't know. I think Kyle Filipowski is a guy. He's got that dog in him. Like I said, I still don't think that he gets the appreciation he deserves. And I think by the time we get to March Madness, he's going to be looked at as one of the best players in college basketball, or at least in my eyes. He's already kind of up there for me, but I feel like he could narrow it even closer, like into the top 5, top 3 players in college basketball. I think he's that good. And I think he's going to be good enough to lead Duke to the Final Four here, given the matchups, given this bracket. Give me Duke as our third team to make it to the Final Four. We do have the 4 seed in Duke coming out of this region. We got the 11 seed in Michigan State coming out of this region, and we got the 2 seed in Marquette coming out of this region. Will we have any 1 seeds make it through this to the championship, or to the Final Four, excuse me. Next up, we do have our last region. It is Kansas. It is Lipscomb. And come on. Kansas is winning this game. Come on. Give me Kansas. Next up, we got Utah versus Northwestern, which is a very good 8-9 matchup for sure. But I like Northwestern in this matchup. I think they're more proven. They got a win last year in March Madness. They brought back Boo Buie in them boys. Give me Northwestern. Colorado State versus Liberty. I don't like the 12 seed in this one. Liberty is probably the worst 12 seed out of these 4. Out of Princeton. Who else did we have? Grand Canyon, of course. And then Indiana State. Yeah, I think Liberty might be the worst 12 seed in that. Which, me saying that automatically guarantees that they're going to get a win. But Colorado State is a very good team. I'm a big Isaiah Stevens guy, and I like Colorado State here to win this game and move on to round number 2. Next up, we do have Memphis versus McNeese State, and I'm a huge Memphis guy, as you guys could probably tell by my power rankings earlier in this week. Give me Memphis here to knock McNeese State out of their boots and move on. I like Penny Hardaway's team to go far this year. They got some experienced guards in Javon Quinterly. They got one of, maybe, if not the best front courts in college basketball. Very underrated this year at this point, at least according to the AP and a lot of people that I see. Memphis very underrated. They had an amazing front court already, and they added Naquan Tomlin like in the middle of the season. Like, what? Come on now. Memphis is nice. Next up, we got New Mexico or Kansas State going up against Alabama, and I'm going to straight up tell you right now, whoever wins between New Mexico and Kansas State is going to defeat Alabama. And you guys you guys know how high I am on New Mexico. And how good they are, but I don't like this matchup for them in the play-in. I think Kansas State is a team that has a great head coach in Jerome Tang, who made it to the Elite Eight last year, and they have some experienced players like Cam Carter and Tyler Perry, who won the NIT championship last year with North Texas, and Arthur Kaluma, who went to the Elite Eight last year with Creighton. Yeah, they lost Naquan Tomlin. It's a tough loss. But this Kansas State team is still so good. And I know Alabama has some great players like Grant Nelson. I think I'm going to have Alabama lose in this matchup. I think this 11 seed is coming out. As high as I've been on New Mexico and as good as I think they are, as much as I want to see the Lobos pull off some wins in March, I got to go with Kansas State. Man, to win this game. I feel like they're going to be looked at as a much better team by the time we get to March. Next up, we got Illinois versus Vermont, and the Catamounts always seem to be there, but they never seem to get it done in March Madness. Could this be the year? I mean, Illinois has been known to lose some early tournament games in the first and second round, even as a top seed, so it is possible, but I like Illinois here in this matchup. I'm a big Coleman Hawkins fan. I think that if he can really turn up and become that player that we know he can be this year, Illinois is going to be very, very dangerous. Next up, we got Ole Miss versus James Madison, and James Madison is undefeated this year. And nobody expected it. I sure as heck did not expect it. Ole Miss is also undefeated this year, though. These are 2 out of the 3 undefeated teams in college basketball, and they are in a 7 versus 10 matchup. And I like Ole Miss in this matchup. I think Ole Miss is very underrated. I mean, they beat Memphis this year. Other than that, they've played a cupcake schedule. We know this. But Chris Beard, say what you want about him. He may not be a good person as a human, and he's had some cases against him. I can't even say he's a bad person necessarily because I don't know the guy. But one thing I do know, he is a great basketball coach, and he knows how to win games, and they got some great guards on this team, and he knows how to get players in through the transfer portal, and I'm going to go with Ole Miss here to move on. Next up, we do have UConn versus Colgate. Colgate, you know they're going to floss through your defense. They're going to wash your team away. But can they do that against the defending national champions? I'm not so sure about that. I think UConn is on another level this year, and that championship only gave them some confidence. And I think they are going to be able to win here in this one. Next up, we do have Kansas versus Northwestern, and honestly, I could see a world where Northwestern beats Kansas, but I'm going to go with Kansas. I just think Harris, one of the best point guards in college basketball. Hunter Dickinson, one of the best centers in college basketball. Kevin McCullough, one of the more underrated players in college basketball, who seems to be maybe adding a 3-point game to his game. If Kevin McCullough has a 3-point, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. But yeah, Kansas moving on here. Next up, we got Colorado State going up against Memphis here in this matchup, and the winner this could be, if the winner of this game knocks off Kansas, we could be looking at a Final Four team here in this matchup. I mean, that's how good this matchup is looking. Colorado State versus Memphis. Isaiah Stevens versus Javon Quinterly. I think that Memphis has enough guards to be able to slow down Isaiah Stevens, and I feel like they have the better front court. As I mentioned before, they have one of the best front courts in college basketball. So I'm going to take Memphis here in this one to knock off Colorado State. Next up, we do have Kansas State versus Illinois, and this is going to be a fantastic matchup. I mentioned Kansas State has some experience. I think that this could be the year Illinois finally makes a little bit of a run, and I think at this point in the season, Illinois is definitely more proven. If we're just talking this year, and I'm going to take Illinois here to make it to the Sweet 16. Let's go, Illini, making a little bit of a run. Come on. Next, we got Ole Miss versus UConn, and I think over the past, I'm not sure how many years, but I know there's a stat out there. The defending national champion always seems to be losing in the second round for whatever reason. It happened last year. Kansas lost to Arkansas in the second round as a 1 seed. And I think this dates back to like 2018. Villanova won the championship 2019. Year after, they're a 1 seed. They win round 1. They lose in the second round to 8-seeded Wisconsin. I vividly remembered that game. And I think that dates all the way back then. So it's been happening. Will it happen again this year? We all know UConn still looks like a national championship contender, and they can possibly go back to back. 100%. 100% can. But Chris Beard knows how to win games. Chris Beard was in a national championship, which he lost with Texas Tech. But and I'm not sure that Ole Miss has the front court to compete with Caravan and Donovan Clingan. But they have a lot of size for sure. I'm going to go with Ole Miss here to knock them off and move on to the Sweet 16. It just seems to happen. The defending national champions seem to lose in the second round. I do think if anyone can break that streak, it will be UConn this year. But we'll see, man. We'll see. Next up, we got Kansas versus Memphis, and this just feels right as a Sweet 16 matchup. I mean, both these teams have been playing great basketball early on in this season, and I think a Memphis front court can give Hunter Dickinson a lot of problems. I truly believe that, and KJ Adams too. And KJ Adams seems like a guy that I feel like Memphis could frustrate enough to where it forces him to play a little bit bad, and I like Memphis in this game. David Jones is a beast, man. They have a great front court. I'm a big fan of Penny Hardaway. Penny Hardaway is one of those guys, you either love him or you hate him. I'm a guy that I want to see him succeed for sure, because I think he's a great head coach, and some people give him some slack for like no reason at all. I'm going to go with Memphis in this game for sure. Let's get Memphis in the Elite Eight. They're a team that was this close last year in the first round to beating FAU, who went on to the Final Four. Like, it was that watching that team you almost beat go to the Final Four, thinking that could have been us. That's got to light a fire under you, man. That's got to light a fire under you. And I think that this year they could. I think they're at least going to the Sweet 16. I feel comfortable with that, and I'm going to have them in my Elite Eight here. And who knows, maybe the Final Four. We'll get there when we get there. Next up, we got Illinois versus Ole Miss. And this is probably not a matchup you were thinking you were going to see in the Sweet 16, but Brad Underwood, Chris Beard, let's see what you got. And I would like to see this matchup a lot. I think that Terrence Shannon Jr. is one of the only elite forwards that we have this year in college basketball. And I think that this could be the year. I worry a lot about Illinois guard play. I think they have some great defensive guards, and I worry a little bit about their shooting. But if they can have one more player step up this year with their shooting, whether that's Goody, who's a great shooter, if he can take it to that next level, I feel good about Illinois. And why not? Let's do it, man. Let's have Illinois make it to the Elite Eight here to go against Memphis. Our 3 seed versus our 4 seed. Why not? Let's make it happen, man. So we have one more game, and then we have our Final Four set. Memphis versus Illinois, and Coleman Hawkins is the guy I could see struggling against like David Jones and Naquan Tomlin and all these big boys they got down there. Memphis plays hard. We know what Memphis basketball means, and they're going to play physical down there, and I think that kind of is a bad matchup for Coleman Hawkins, and I think Dane Danger can play physical, but for how long, I like Memphis a lot in this matchup. I like Memphis a lot here, and I'm going to have them make it to the Final Four right now. Let's do it. So we have a 4 seed, a 4 seed, an 11 seed, and a 2 seed. Our Final Four is set. So in our first Final Four matchup, we have Michigan State versus Marquette. Rematch from last year's second round matchup. 2 excellent backcourts where we do have like guys like Atkins, Hogard, Walker going up against Jones, Cam Jones, Tyler Kolek, Stevie Mitchell. I'm a big Sean Jones fan. I think that he's going to turn it up by the time we get to March Madness. And then how good is Iggy and these boys going to go up against a Michigan State front court that has been underwhelming up to this point, but one of them's got to step up, right? If not, I think Iggy can have a big game. I like Shaka Smart. I like this Marquette team to take this personal. I want them to take this personal as a revenge game, kind of a revenge arc here in their story to the national championship game. We all know that March Madness is full of great storylines, and this was just set up perfectly by your boy Danny. And I like this matchup, and give me Marquette here to make it to the national championship here in 2024. Next up, we got Duke versus Memphis. Tough, grinded out matchup here in this one. Cal Filipowski going up against David Jones. I think maybe the 2 best power forwards in college basketball. You could definitely say that. They're definitely up there. And that is a matchup in the Final Four that I would love to see. Javon Quinterly, he's not the best point guard in the world. Penny Hardaway makes point guards better when they go there. He does. He just does. He's always had great point guards whenever he's since he's been coaching. And he knows how to play the position. He makes them better. And Javon Quinterly is experienced. If he's anything, he is definitely experienced. I think he's in like his 6th year of college. He's going up against Jeremy Roach, who is another experienced point guard, a much better point guard in my opinion, but I think that would be a fun matchup. If they're in the Final Four, Javon Quinterly in his 6th year is going to be playing hard. That is an excellent matchup to watch as well. You have other great players going up against each other. I think that this one goes down to the wire, but I am going to go with the Duke Blue Devils to win this game and make it to the national championship to go on against Marquette. And we have 2 young head coaches. If you still want to call Shaka Smart a young head coach, he's in his 40s probably. That's still, to me, how old is Shaka Smart? I feel like he looks younger than he is, but I'm getting off topic. 2 coaches that want to capture their first national championship. John Shire, in his is this his 2nd season as the head coach? He's done a great job, carrying the torch from Coach K. And again, another great matchup down low between Iggy and Kyle Filipowski. I think Kyle Filipowski is that dude, man. Let me know. I might be higher on them than you guys, but I think he's a beast. I think Tyler Kolek is the best point guard in the country, and I think that he's going to take over this game. I think that Sean Jones, Stevie Mitchell, Joplin, these guys are X-Factor players. If 2 of those 3 guys can step up, I feel confident in Marquette going very deep, at least the Elite 8 this year in the tournament. But Cam Jones, I feel like he shoots the light outs this game. I feel like Tyler Kolek, he's gonna be diming it up. He's gonna be driving. He's so shifty in the way, like he's almost awkward in the way that he drives to the rack. It's kind of like fundamental, but it's also awkward. It's weird, and it's tough for players to defend. I feel like Duke on this run, they're going to have guys like Mark Mitchell step up. Tyrese Proctor takes that next step up. If they get here, it is going to happen, and it's going to be an amazing national championship matchup. But I am going to have the Marquette Golden Eagles win the national championship 2023-2024. And this one is, where's the national championship this year? Arizona. It's in Phoenix, I think. It's in Phoenix. I could be completely wrong about that, but I'm almost positive. Marquette wins it. Tyler Kolek, Final Four most outstanding player, gets the revenge on Michigan State, then beats Duke in the national championship game, and has some great performances doing it. So let me know what you guys think about my bracket after this point in the season, and let me know how often you guys want to see an updated version of these videos, because I know it's a popular series. I know you guys like to see them, and I like to make them. So let me know what you guys think, and yeah, guys. Some great storylines in here. Marquette getting their revenge over Michigan State. You got the Caleb Love Bowl in the Sweet 16 with Arizona and North Carolina. You got a great matchup between Kentucky and Purdue. You got San Diego State making it back to the Elite Eight. Are they going to knock off Duke and make it to back-to-back Final Fours? Memphis and Illinois making it to the Elite Eight. Two really good college basketball brands that just haven't been there in a while. It would be great to see. You got Ole Miss knocking off UConn. You got Purdue Fort Wayne making it to the Sweet 16. Michigan State to the Final Four as an 11 seed. Great storylines going on, and that's really how I like to make my brackets, because they're going to happen in real life. I like to try to predict them. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, guys, subscribe for more college basketball content. We're getting on a roll here on this channel right now, because we're getting closer and closer to March Madness. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you guys are new.